Today is the 23rd day of the month of Kislev. We are in the middle of chapter 139, discussing the laws and customs of Chanukah. Today we will be doing paragraph 12 through paragraph 19. Paragraph 12. On the first night of Chanukah, right before we light the candles, we make 3 blessings. These blessings are on page number 782 in the Art Scroll Siddur, the Wasserman edition. The first blessing is Asher Kedishanu Mitzvah Sivanu Lahadlik Ner Shel Chanukah. Thank you, God, for the special mitzvah of lighting the Chanukah menorah. The second blessing is Sha'asa Nitzim Lavasinu B'Yomim B'Zman Hazeh. Thank you, God, for bringing miracles in those days at this time of year. And the third blessing that we do on the first night is Shachianu V'Kimanu V'Ganu L'Zman Hazeh. Thank you, God, for once more bringing us to the Chanukah season, we're able to celebrate Chanukah once more. So that third blessing, we only do the first night. We do not do it the remaining nights of Chanukah. After we light the menorah, we then sing a song, again on page 782 in the Art Scroll Siddur, called Haneros Halalu, talking about the candles, this mitzvah of menorah, what it symbolizes. And then on the bottom of page 782, you'll see a well-known song called Ma'uz Tzur, which is commonly sung, talking about the different salvations we've had over our enemies over the generations. If somebody is in the status called an onain is someone who has an immediate relative that passed away, a parent, a spouse, a sibling, or a child. So until the burial, until the funeral, then this person who has a relative that passed away is not supposed to do any positive mitzvahs, generally speaking. Therefore, he should not be lighting the menorah. It's better somebody else should light the menorah for him, and they'll say the blessings, and he would say amen to their blessings. However, if there's nobody else around who could do it on his behalf, then he should light the menorah, but he does not make any blessings. We'll see more about the laws of an onain when we get to chapter 196. Paragraph 13. Let's say somebody lights the menorah, they put in oil, they're using oil and wicks, and then they realize, oh my goodness, I didn't put enough oil in there to last half an hour. Could he then add more oil to the cup as the candle is lit? So the answer is no. The halacha is that we go according to how it was when you lit it. When you lit it, it had to have half hour's worth of oil. If there wasn't half hour's worth of oil, you have to put it out, put in more oil, and then relight it. Now, let's say you put in half an hour's worth of oil, but then the table got tipped over, some of the oil spilled out, or something of that sort, and now it's not going to end up going for half an hour. In that case, because when you lit it, there was enough oil to last half an hour, then that was a valid menorah lighting. You don't have to worry about adding oil and relighting the menorah. If you want to add oil in there, you're more than welcome to, but it's not necessary. And you definitely shouldn't put out the menorah and relight it because you already got the mitzvah. If somebody's lighting outside, then they have to be careful. It's in a place where a standard wind will not blow out the candles. If the standard wind would blow out the candles, then it would not have been considered a valid menorah lighting. Even if it happened to be that night, there wasn't one that did it. If normally there are winds here that would blow out candles, you can't light over there, or it has to be in a case to protect it from the candles. If he lit it in a place where there isn't a strong wind, and somehow the wind came and blew out the candles, but it wasn't a standard wind, then again, just like with the oil, because when you lit it, it was really set up to be, if things would have been the standard course, it would have lasted, then this case also was considered a valid menorah lighting. Again, this isn't so relevant nowadays, because nowadays you light inside. Just make sure there's no fans around that might blow it out. Just that you know, the language that the Gemara uses for this concept is that hadlaka osa mitzvah and not hanacha osa mitzvah. Hadlaka osa mitzvah means that the situation has to be set up that when you light it, it literally means the lighting makes the mitzvah, meaning calls it to be a valid mitzvah, which means that the situation that was set up when you lit it had to have been appropriate for it to last half an hour. And it's not hanachot mitzvah, which literally means where you place it after it's already lit. It's where you place it after it's already lit. That makes a mitzvah. Nope, it doesn't work like that. It does not work like hanachot mitzvah, where you move it after it's already lit. What makes the difference is what the situation was at the time that it was lit. Again, it's called hadlaka osa mitzvah. The lighting is what makes the mitzvah. Knowing the name is not so practical. There's no practicality to it, but is very commonly used in different classes and Torah discussions, and therefore I thought something is worthwhile knowing how to use the Gemara term to explain this halacha. Paragraph 16. We previously learned the rule that positive mitzvahs, which are time-bound, women are exempt from. Lighting a menorah is a positive time-bound mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to do something, and also there's a time that you're supposed to do it in. Therefore, you would think that ladies are exempt from lighting the menorah, but they're not. Ladies also have a mitzvah of lighting menorah. This is because they were included in the miracle of the menorah, the miracle of Chanukah. And not only that, they're part of the catalyst, as we discussed back in paragraph 3, that ladies had a part to play, and therefore this is an exception to the rule that ladies are usually exempt from positive Haba mitzvahs. Lighting a menorah, they're not exempt from. They have to do as well. But remember, like we talked about in yesterday's episode, that if a woman is married, then her and her husband really only need one menorah. They don't need two menorahs. So generally, the husband will light it and have in mind his wife. But if the wife wants to light her own menorah, that works as well. It's nothing wrong with that. It's totally fine. A single lady, however, has to make sure that she's lighting a menorah. Paragraph 17. On Friday afternoon, what's the procedure? When do you light Shabbos candles? When do you light the menorah? How does it work? So obviously you can't light it after nightfall because it's already Shabbos, and on Shabbos, we can't light candles. And we're not supposed to light it after we light Shabbos candles because when we light Shabbos candles, that's the beginning of Shabbos already, once the Shabbos candles are lit. And so therefore, we have to light the menorah first. So the custom is to daven mincha early, afternoon service earlier on Friday afternoon instead of davening it right before sunset like we usually do. So best to daven the afternoon service early, then the men come home, then everybody lights the menorah, and then light Shabbos candles. You have to make sure a few things about it, however. There has to be enough oil or using big enough candles that the flame will last half an hour after sunset. And not after sunset, after it's fully dark outside. So you have to make sure that there's got to be a nice amount of fuel over there. And also, you have to make sure that you're not lighting too early, like we mentioned in yesterday's episode, that you can light, the earliest you can light is the time called Plag HaMincha, a halachic hour and a quarter before sunset. You have to make sure that you're lighting after that Plag HaMincha time. And again, look at myzmanim.com to look at the time where your location is. You put in your location, it will tell you what's the earliest time you can light Chanukah and Shabbos candles. Paragraph 18. What about Saturday night? Do we light the menorah first, or do we do Havdalah first? So each one actually has their own reason why they should be first. There's a general rule that if you have two mitzvahs, you do the more common mitzvah you do first. In this case, Havdalah is more common than menorah. Havdalah we do every single week. Menorah only 8 nights out of the year. So therefore you should do Havdalah first. On the other hand, there's also a concept that we want to always have an excuse to extend Shabbos a little bit longer. So if we could do the mitzvah of menorah first, then Havdalahs afterwards, we're kind of like extending Shabbos a little bit longer until after we finish lighting the menorah. Now, even in this past case, in this past scenario, if somebody would be lighting the menorah first, their Shabbos really already has to be over. They have to say a line, which is Baruch Hamavdil bin Kodesh L'chol. Blessed is the one that separates between Shabbos, between holy and standard, and the weekday. If somebody doesn't do that, they still have all of the Shabbos restrictions of not lighting candles, not driving cars. All that still applies until they say that line. So if they're going to be lighting the menorah, even though their goal is to push off Havdalah a little bit later, it's still, they have to say this line first, because if it's still Shabbos, you can't light a menorah. But practically, what do we do first? Do we light the menorah first, or do we do Havdalah first? The answer is, there are two different customs, and do whichever custom or whichever one seems more meaningful to you. Paragraph 19. This is a very complicated paragraph and a very complicated halacha. This is the laws of what to do if you're not home. Where do you light the menorah? So if you're not home but you're in your town, you're supposed to go home for menorah lighting. Even if you're eating dinner over with somebody's house, you're having a Chanukah party at somebody's house, you're really supposed to light candles in your house first and then go have the Chanukah party, or at least have the Chanukah party wherever you are, then go home and light candles after you get home. You're not supposed to light in somebody else's house if you live in the same town. Let's say you're out of town. Let's say you're traveling somewhere and you're not in your city. So if you have somebody at home, if your spouse is home, then your spouse should light candles for you at home, and you should light where you are, but you shouldn't say blessings because since your spouse is lighting at home, they really get you the mitzvah. So you should light where you are, but it's best to first have the host of where you're staying, have them light their candles. You say amen to their blessing, and then you light your candles where you are. If you don't have anybody at home lighting a menorah for you, then you're supposed to light where you are with a blessing. Now, let's say you're out of town, you're in a different city, and you're sleeping in one place and you're eating in another place. Where do you light? Do you light where you're sleeping or do you light where you're eating? So the halacha is that it goes according to where you're sleeping. These rules could get very complicated, especially if you're traveling. People are traveling to Israel on Chanukah, so it creates problems of where to light, when to light, how to light. You can't light menorah on an airplane. They're not going to let you do that, of course. So if you're in a situation like this, and reach out to a rabbi, discuss it with the rabbi exactly what's the appropriate way to do menorah lighting. This concludes today's episode. Have a wonderful day and see you tomorrow.